She was best known as Archie Bunker's better half in the groundbreaking 70s sitcom All in the Family. Jean Stapleton died today of natural causes at the age of 90 at her home in New York City.
Jean Stapleton is a name that millions of television fans will never forget. Best known for her role as Edith Bunker in the groundbreaking sitcom All in the Family, she became a symbol of kindness, humor, and quiet strength. Yet behind her famous smile, Jean carried a personal struggle and a regret that haunted her for much of her life. At the age of 89, just before her passing, she finally admitted what many had suspected, that her success as Edith Bunker had, in some ways, trapped her. While the character brought her awards, fame, and admiration, it also closed doors to other dreams she had as an actress. This bittersweet truth made her life story not just about triumph but also about sacrifice. To understand this regret, we need to step back and look at the full journey of Jean Stapleton. From her early childhood struggles to her rise on Broadway, her years on television, and finally, her later reflections on what she wished she had done differently. Jean Stapleton was born Jean Murray on January 19, 1923, in New York City during a heavy snowstorm. Her father worked in advertising while her mother was a concert soprano who dreamed of the stage. Money was always tight, especially when the Great Depression struck, and Jean's family had to make sacrifices. Even as a child, Jean showed a love for performing. She took tap dance lessons thanks to her mother, who traded her singing lessons for Jean's dance classes. Her father even pawned his pocket watch so she could have proper tap shoes. Jean learned early on that chasing a dream often required sacrifice, and this lesson stayed with her for life. By the age of 9, her father had left the family, forcing her mother to raise Jean alone. Despite hardship, Jean found joy in school plays and neighborhood performances. Her natural humor and ability to make people laugh began to shine, and she discovered that acting was more than fun. It was something she wanted to pursue as her life's calling. During her teenage years, Jean continued to chase opportunities in the performing arts. She often created her own costumes for plays out of scraps and posters, showing her resourcefulness. After graduating high school in 1939, she worked as a typist during the day to support her family while attending acting classes at night. She joined the American Theater Wing and began training seriously as an actress. Jean quickly learned that acting required discipline, patience, and resilience. Early auditions did not always go her way, but she kept improving her voice, timing, and stage presence. By 1941, she officially began using her mother's maiden name, Stapleton, as her professional name. Soon after, she landed her first small acting jobs, including roles in summer theater productions and off-Broadway plays. These early years were not glamorous, but they built the foundation for her long career. She learned to adapt quickly, manage pressure backstage, and understand both the art and the business of acting. The 1950s and 1960s were important decades for Jean Stapleton. She slowly worked her way into more prominent Broadway productions. Her big break came with the musical Bells Are Ringing in 1956, where she performed alongside Judy Holliday. The show was a hit and gave Jean the recognition she needed. She went on to perform in other successful productions, such as Funny Girl and Juno, proving her versatility. Around this time, she also met and married William Pooch, a fellow theater professional. Together, they ran the Totem Pole Playhouse, a summer theater in Pennsylvania. Though the theater faced financial struggles, Jean invested her own Broadway paychecks to keep it alive, showing her commitment not just to her own career but also to the survival of live theater. While Jean's Broadway work was respected, casting directors often overlooked her for leading roles because she didn't fit the traditional Hollywood beauty standards. Rather than change herself, she embraced character roles, women who were funny, strong, or unique. This choice would later shape her career-defining role on television. By the late 1960s, Jean was appearing in guest roles on television, including shows like The Defenders, Dr. Kildare, and My Three Sons. She even crossed paths with Carol O'Connor, though at the time neither of them knew they would later form one of television's most famous on-screen couples. In 1970, when Norman Lear began casting for a bold new sitcom, that would tackle real-life issues through comedy, Jean auditioned. Originally, she read for a different role, but her unique voice and timing caught Leah's attention. She crafted the nasal, high-pitched voice that would later define Edith Bunker, a character who seemed naive but often surprised viewers with moments of wisdom and compassion. Jean, then 47, worked hard to bring authenticity to Edith by observing real women in Queens, learning their gestures and mannerisms. Her dedication to the character helped make All in the Family one of the most groundbreaking shows in television history. When All in the Family premiered in 1971, it immediately stirred controversy and praise for its honest look at social issues like racism, gender roles, and politics. Jean Stapleton's Edith Bunker became the heart of the show. Though Edith was often portrayed as simple or submissive, Jean made sure the character had depth and quiet strength. One of the most powerful episodes showed Edith surviving an attempted assault, and Jean insisted that the scene be handled seriously, not watered down. Another memorable storyline addressed Edith's experience with menopause, which Jean fought to present truthfully. She won 3 Emmy Awards and 2 Golden Globes for her work. However, behind the success was a problem. Jean began to feel trapped by Edith. Casting directors and producers struggled to see her as anyone else. Despite her wide range of talent, she became typecast as the sweet, soft-spoken housewife, and this frustrated her deeply. After 8 seasons, Jean made the difficult decision to leave All in the Family in 1979. Norman Lear tried to convince her to stay, but she explained that Edith was only fiction, and she wanted to move on before being permanently stuck in that role. The show later revealed that Edith had died, a decision that shocked fans but highlighted how closely audiences connected to her. After the series, Jean continued working in television and theater, but her regret started to grow. While she still acted and even directed productions, Hollywood continued to see her primarily as Edith. She often turned down film roles that were too small or stereotypical, but in hindsight, she admitted she wished she had taken more chances in movies. Watching her peers like Bearthur succeed in film only reminded her of opportunities lost. This became the regret she later admitted weighed heavily on her, that her most famous role had also limited her in ways she could not escape. Away from the spotlight, Jean lived a life filled with dedication to her family and her values. She and her husband William had 2 children, John and Pamela, and she often turned down work that would take her away from them. In 1983, tragedy struck when William suddenly passed away from a heart attack. Jean continued working, finding strength in acting to cope with her grief. Beyond her career, she was active in women's rights. In 1977, she joined former First Ladies Rosalind Carter, Betty Ford, and Lady Bird Johnson at the National Women's Conference, speaking up for equality and workplace rights. This was a bold move for someone often seen as Edith Bunker, a reminder that Jean Stapleton was far more outspoken and progressive than her character. Her activism, combined with her body of work, made her an important figure not only in entertainment but also in social progress. In her later years, Jean slowed down due to health challenges, including arthritis and memory problems. She took on smaller projects, voice work, and even mentored young actors, encouraging them to keep going despite rejection. She was honest about her own struggles, admitting that there were moments in her early career when she felt like giving up. What kept her going was her faith and resilience. But as she aged, she began to reflect more on her career. In an interview in her late 80s, Jean finally revealed what many had guessed. Her biggest regret was not pursuing more film roles. She felt that being forever tied to Edith Bunker had cost her the chance to explore other characters on screen. It was a painful truth, yet she shared it openly, perhaps as a way of letting others learn from her experience. Despite this regret, she remained grateful for the love audiences gave her. Jean Stapleton passed away on May 31, 2013. At the age of 90, surrounded by her children, her last words, "Thank you for Edith," showed that even with her regrets, she appreciated the role that defined her career. Just days later, Broadway dimmed its lights in her honor, a rare tribute reserved for the most respected figures in theater and television. Critics and fans alike remembered her as more than Edith, as a woman who gave voice to real struggles, brought humor and humanity to the screen, and stood for equality and strength. Her story is one of talent, sacrifice, and quiet courage. While she may have felt trapped at times by the role that made her famous, Jean Stapleton left behind a legacy that is bigger than any regret. She showed the world that even the gentlest voices can leave the loudest echoes, and that is why she will always be remembered. One of the most fascinating aspects of Jean Stapleton's career was her relationship with Carroll O'Connor, the actor who played Archie Bunker. On screen, Edith and Archie often clashed, with Archie belittling Edith's soft-hearted nature while she responded with patience and warmth. Many viewers wondered if the two actors had a similar bond in real life. In truth, Jean and Carroll had enormous respect for each other. O'Connor later admitted that Jean's performance gave depth to his own role, because Edith's kindness made Archie's roughness more believable. Offset, the two often rehearsed for hours, fine-tuning their timing so jokes landed perfectly. They didn't always agree, but their differences pushed the show forward. For example, when a script required Edith to stay silent in a heated political debate, Jean argued that her character would at least try to speak up. Carroll backed her, and the writers rewrote the scene. Their partnership was one of balanced Jean's calm discipline, paired with Carroll's fiery personality. Though Jean rarely sought the spotlight, she later admitted that her time working with Carroll was one of the most rewarding parts of her career. Their chemistry remains one of television's most iconic pairings. Working on All in the Family was not always easy. The show often tackled issues that divided America, including race, gender equality, and war. Tensions sometimes ran high, both in the writer's room and on the set. Jean, however, became known as the calming force. She carried herself with dignity and often reminded others that the show's purpose was not just comedy, but also reflection. Norman Lear once recalled that Jean had a truth radar. If a script didn't feel authentic to Edith's voice, she would politely but firmly raise her concerns. This honesty elevated the character and gave audiences something real to connect with. Another challenge was dealing with the live studio audience. Since the show was filmed before a crowd, timing was everything. Jean developed a unique skill of pausing for laughs without breaking character, something that younger actors on the show often struggled with. Her professionalism earned her the nickname, the Rock of the Set. For Jean, every scene was a chance to not only entertain, but also to deliver a message that might make viewers think differently about the world. Jean Stapleton's role as Edith Bunker also had a deeper cultural impact, especially for women in television. At a time when many sitcom wives were portrayed as glamorous, perfect homemakers, Edith was refreshingly real. She worried about bills, made mistakes, and sometimes looked tired, just like millions of women watching at home. Yet, she also displayed a quiet strength that resonated with audiences. Her gentle nature masked a determination to stand up when it mattered, such as in episodes where she defended her daughter Gloria's choices or questioned Archie's stubborn views. Feminist critics at the time were divided. Some saw Edith as too submissive, while others argued she represented the overlooked resilience of everyday women. Jean herself believed Edith's value came from her ability to love unconditionally, while still finding her own voice. This subtle but powerful portrayal influenced how later TV wives were written, paving the way for more complex female characters in sitcoms. Today, many television historians credit Edith Bunker as one of the first characters to show that a sitcom wife could be both funny and strong without fitting into unrealistic stereotypes. After leaving All in the Family, Jean returned to her first love, the stage. Theatre gave her a freedom that television sometimes denied. She took on roles in Shakespeare productions, musicals, and original plays that challenged her in new ways. One of her most celebrated stage performances was in Arsenic and Old Lace, where she played Abby Brewster, a quirky character far removed from Edith Bunker. Critics praised her ability to shift between comedy and drama seamlessly. She also toured with a one-woman show about Eleanor Roosevelt, a role she considered one of her most meaningful. In interviews, Jean explained that playing Roosevelt allowed her to merge acting with her personal belief in social justice. Through theater, she also mentored younger actors, reminding them that success was not measured